It's nice to finally get you on the podcast. For those of you listening, the way that I met Elric was I kept consuming all of this fantastic content that you've been putting out in your newsletters. And I was like, shit, I've never actually talked to this guy before. I know we've had like some LinkedIn exchanges and things like that. So we talked a couple months ago. I hopped on your podcast and wanted to return the favor. And in terms of like your expertise and experience, can you give us some quick context? Like you've done so many different things around Outbound. Like
Mhm.
how did you get into all of this?
So I was in marketing before moving to sales, and basically I was working for a company, SMB company. They hired me to generate leads for the sales team.
Mhm.
So I was just I just got my degree, master degree on marketing, and they were teaching us how you can use marketing for enterprise companies. And I was working for an SME company, and I said, okay, we need 10,000, 100,000 US dollars for running those campaigns. And the owner say, no, you don't have any budgets, figure out. And I started like to study marketing, what you can do with no budget fast. And at some point, I started to read stuff about cold outreach. And I say, yeah, cold outreach, actually, you just need like a tool to find the phone number or the email address of your prospect. You use LinkedIn. I was not using SalesNav at the beginning, but I was using Hunter.io just to start. And that was it. That's how I started. And I thought when I was studying, I said I'm not going to work in sales. I hate sales, and because I had some internship in sales, telemarketing, and I said no, I hate sales, and I said I want to be in marketing. Well, at the end, I'm still in sales. So,
Plus like cold calling, right? It's like the biggest grind that
yeah,
you could possibly go through is doing cold outreach, man.
the first time I cold called someone was an internship telemarketing. We were selling financial services, and I was asking to the guy who was managing us, okay, so we had a list of 1,000 people, and I said, okay, what do we know about those people? When did they give their information? So we were calling them, and so the guy was telling me basically, yeah, they fill out a form 7 years ago. And I said, so you are saying that we're calling someone that doesn't remember they filled out a form 7 years ago, and now we are calling them to try selling your services? Yes. Okay, that doesn't make sense for me, but okay.
Yeah. You're definitely cold calling at that point,
Yep,
for
exactly.
sure.
That was no, exactly. That was cold calling, not B2B, but it was B2C. So we were calling
Yeah.
people, not companies.
Yeah, that's how I came up in sales too, was going door to door selling house painting services. So it's before we dig into we're going to go into the six pillars of, how to
Yeah.
leverage AI and how you're seeing sales teams leverage AI. Can you give us your take? What is the future of AI in relation to, outbound sales? Like it's the hottest thing that everyone's talking about right now. Where do you see this thing going in a year or two?
Tough question. I don't know, to be fair with you, because it's evolving really fast. But the way I'm thinking about AI and how it's evolving, it's how we can obviously apply that for outbound specifically. And obviously, we're going to talk about that today. But I don't know, because if we compare to previous technologies, or if we compare to the internet or stuff like that, it's evolving really fast, and the use
Yeah.
cases, it's growing really fast. So, give you an example. Last year, I was talking about AI for outbound. The main use case was how to use ChatGPT to write a cold email, or to find using Perplexity to find five things about the account you go after based on annual reports, earning call, public information. That was it. That was the main use case. Today, for outbound specifically, I have more than 20 use cases. So it's
Yeah.
not just research or writing emails now, it's getting way bigger, and we'll see. Right now, I'm trying to be, how do you say it? because it's growing fast, I want to focus on what's working for the team, not just, oh yeah, that's okay. OpenAI just released that. Yeah, that's great, but how do we use that? It's not just, yeah, they released this
Yeah.
feature and well, it's not solving anything for us. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to keep up with all the new features of AI tools or new tools, because now also you have new tools using AI for a lot of things. So I don't know, what's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, it's like right now it feels like it's a lot of work to use AI still. There's a lot of
Yep.
prompting that's needed, so it still requires someone to engage with the app and to make a habit out of using whatever LLM that they're using. A lot of that
Mm-hmm.
functionality doesn't exist within the tools that people are using, and the stuff that does is not really that great in most of the tools, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that will disappear soon, where there's going to be stuff that happens behind the scenes, where instead of me having to
Yes.
prompt ChatGPT to write an email, I open up Salesforce or Outreach or whatever sales engagement tool I'm using, and there's like a pre-written email already in there for me that I didn't
Yep.
have to prompt because we've trained it on the back end to know what persona it is, what case study that we want to drop, etc. So I do see us moving more in that direction. It's going to be
Yep.
very scary when a lot of the work is removed from the rep's plate of having to prompt. Like when everyone gets access to that, I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing for us. The other piece that's interesting too is, and you're going to talk about this today, is I think so much more of the benefit is what happens on the back end that the rep never has to see or interact with. And it's
Yep.
all of the, like I'm talking with a company right now that we're doing an audit for.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one RevOps person that creates all of these lists for these prospecting Tuesdays that this company is doing.
Okay.
She's manually going in and pulling all of these reports and looking for all these things, doing something that could easily be automated and given some prompts and direction and all of that kind of stuff. I really don't see very many companies doing anything on the back end with AI in any kind of fashion where something is just happening on
Yeah.
autopilot. A lot of it is like a person having to do things still. And there's a lot of manual work, and there isn't anything around the CRM and how data is managed and AI based coaching. Like again, some of the tools are starting to build it in, but if I'm being quite frank, most of it's not great, especially the AI coaching. It's still not great. But let's just dig in, man. I think that like in each of these, like let's get your take, and like I can kind of share as well, but let's just get to it. So you want to dig into the six
Yeah.
pillars?
Yeah, sure. But before we go into the six pillars, or what you mentioned about being in the backend, I think that's where we're going to move forward. Companies already, some companies, not, I would say 5% or less, are already doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest, they still have the reps using individually a tool like ChatGPT or Perplexity. And then you have still companies almost not using AI yet. So, but if we talk about having AI in your outbound processes, yes, I have like six pillars, but that's basically based on the use case I have. That I figured we have like six ways AI can help outbound specifically. So some stuff it's more focused on improving the quality of your calls, cold calls, discovery calls. So it's improving the conversion rate in terms of if you see your outbound process, if we're talking about cold emails, stage 1 to stage 2 opportunities, it's more focused on conversion rate. And then you have also all the things in the backend, like looking for phone number, doing the research, a lot of things like that that helps, and not directly with the conversion rate, but it removes the hours of doing that to have more time doing more
Yep.
calls, sending more emails, or having more time to be on calls too. So
Yep.
the six pillars. So the first one, I think that's the main one that everyone is using. It's email and outreach optimization. Then we have research and account scoring. So this one, that's one of my favorites today to focus on with companies I'm working with. And then we have CRM automation and data management, call preparation, coaching, deal management, handoffs, and the last one is performance and intelligence.
So let's dig into the first one. So email and
Yep.
outreach optimization. What are some of the common use cases you're seeing? And I think that like feel free to provide commentary on
Yep.
where you see reps or sales teams messing up at this stage and what good looks like as well.
If we talk about AI in general, I would say the where everyone is messing up with that, it's the prompt. Most of the time, it's they try AI for the first time. They say, "Oh, write me a cold email," and then this
Yeah.
ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever tool you're using, they give them like a really generic email. Why? It's because they are trained on data that they found online, and most of the time it's they don't know what's good or not good, or what works or doesn't work.
Yep.
So the issue with AI is they don't know what great looks like. So that's why I think AI is great if you already know what's working, and then you can use AI for that. So for me, that's the biggest mistake, more than using it in ChatGPT or using it in the backend. Because if you have like a bad prompt, it's not going to AI is not going to work. So, and then the second thing is I would say the data, and what I mean by that is what data points are you using, for example? Because yes, AI can write you a message, but what data points are you using? Are you
Yeah.
using what's relevant for your prospect? And here it's basically personalization, but how do you implement that in outreach?
Yeah. So I think the common mistake to sort of speak to that in a practical way is like if AI were your assistant, if it were a person, you would
Yep.
never just say write me a cold email to that person. You would give them a lot of context around what it needs to say, who it's going to go to, what they care about, etc. So I think the biggest thing from here is that there's no magic pill when it comes to
No.
this. Like it's not going to do the thinking for you. Um, so when you say prompts and like things like that, is that the primary way that people are leveraging AI to write emails? Is it primarily through a ChatGPT or a Claude, and it's a lot of prompting,
Yeah.
like back and forth? Are people doing stuff where it's maybe creating emails for reps without them having to do that? Like what are you seeing with your clients?
So for people using it individually, like what we're talking right now, it's most of the times they have an account, they don't know what to use in the email or what they want to say on the phone. So basically, it's using it individually. I think it's better for mid-market or enterprise accounts
Hmm.
because it's you have more insights online. So uh, we use a prompt that is already personalized, relevant for the company because basically we are sending clues or where they can where the AI can find the information. So if you go after an enterprise account with a public company, you can include where to find the annual report or the last earning call. And then in the earning call or the annual report, you can specify which part of this you want, because if you read an annual report, not all of it is relevant generally for writing an email. And then the AI returns the research. And then most of the time we use a second prompt to write the message. So it's not like one prompt to do everything. It's more like one prompt for research and one prompt for
Yeah.
writing the message, or if you want to use it for email. But sometimes they just use a research to have a POV on the account.
Yeah. Do you have any best practices around how to think about prompts? Because I think you mentioned something that's really important there where
Yeah,
you're not just going to have one prompt that does everything, and you can kind of overload
yeah.
the AI
Um,
in a bit where it
yeah.
doesn't really give you super detailed, granular results when you try to ask it to do too much. But how do you think about the different types of prompts and best practices around that?
Yeah, it's if you go back to the prompting aspect of it, it's being super specific, having specific about the company. So I share most of the time like templatized prompts, but I have another prompt to use, so you can use it for your company. So if you are going after healthcare hospital, for example, in the US, you have specific websites from the different states in the US that you can use for your outreach, for example. And so the goal with the prompts is to be more relevant for your industry and your product. So that's one, because you don't want to say, go figure out. You want to be super specific about where to find those data points you need for your outreach. I would say the more specific you are, the better. So
yeah. So be really specific, be very prescriptive, and think about the different steps that you would go through if you were doing the activity, and those need to be different prompts. So like you need to tell it, like we have an additional prompt at the beginning. I don't know if this is part of what you teach, where it's like, hey, here's more information about the problems that we solve, the personas that we sell to, and what they care about. That's first.
Yes.
And then the account research, and then the write the cold email.
Yes, good point. I forgot to mention that. So before all of it, I already worked on the ICP persona. So we already have like the research on this side. And what I do most of the time to do it quicker, because before AI, I was doing that manually, is mapping. If you don't have like a map of the pain points you solve, what you can do is reverse engineer your website. So AI is pretty good at reading your website and for all the features you have on your website to give you what are the pain points behind those features. And what I do is basically a map of the pain points, having the list of those pain points, and then using that in the prompt. So then when you use that in your find the AI prompt for your research, the prompt can find like relevant pain points for your use case. So, and it works really well. And I'm going to give you an example why I've started to use AI, because I think, I don't know for you, but I was skeptic at the beginning of using AI. I said,
oh, I was so skeptical. Mostly because it was really bad. Like even 12 months ago, I thought it was pretty bad at doing a lot of this stuff. And it's just improved a lot.
Exactly. And I started to use ChatGPT at the beginning in Perplexity for a company I used to work for. We were selling a technical product. So we were selling to VP of data and chief data officers. And for me, it was complex to understand the day-to-day of a data leader. That was one. Then understanding the industry. Why do they use Snowflake? What do they use BigQuery? A lot of things that obviously it was completely new for me. So one thing was being new in this industry. So I said, well, if I'm listening to a podcast, how do I know that's a pain point that our tool can solve that? So basically, I use a lot. I was basically prompting a lot the Perplexity to say, okay, here's an interview from this company. So, for example, I booked Gong for this company. They had like a pretty big data team. And I used an interview that I was listening to, but like I said, that's what's relevant for them, because I'm not super familiar with all the pain points they were mentioning in the interview. And I use it, saw the results, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to trust blindly AI. So I asked to the co-founders where they are data leaders, and then through an AE that one was working, I say, hey, what do you think about this reply from the prompt? Because I said, I think it's great, but do you think that's relevant for them? And he say, oh yeah, that's super good. I say, okay. And I knew I was into something, so obviously it's a lot of tests and iteration, but it works. So
got it. So pillar one, email and outreach optimization. This is AI powered personalization that we can do. We can write pre-written messaging. We can get AI to help us get maybe visual or creative, type of outreach. We can have it help us score emails, etc. Let's talk about pillar two, research and account scoring.
Yes, so we're already talking about that, because actually I think pillar two comes before pillar one. But if we think about research, I was talking about mid-market and enterprise accounts. So individually, you can do that. You can use ChatGPT or Perplexity. But now if we go a bit deeper, you have ways to find, I would say, clues about the pain points about your accounts online that maybe are not in an annual report, stuff like that. So I'm giving you an example. In Q4, I was working with a company selling an HR solution in France. They were going after SMB accounts from 5 employees to 50 employees. And this company, they have like 10 years, they are 10 years old, sorry. And most of the accounts, they already know them. But they still have like, those companies who are still non-digital, they don't have a website. And so what we did basically is having an AI agent finding, are they hiring online? So we were checking different websites, LinkedIn and French job boards. Do they use an ATS? Do they have an HR person? Do they have a talent acquisition person? And a lot of things that ChatGPT or Perplexity can do because it's not public information. So it's clues that you might find inside the code of the website or another website. So it's
what AI agent were you guys using for this?
I was using Claire for this one. So it's
dang. Yeah. So it could go through that list and populate all the stuff that, like back in the day when we would have virtual assistants, go and build lists for us. This is like something you would have a person do, right? Exactly, where you're paying them, they're going to go on the website, they're going to check LinkedIn real quick, they're going to do all of this other kind of stuff. And with Clay, that's just all automated. How accurate was the data?
90% accurate.
Really? And this is just a click of a button. It takes a couple minutes for it to populate this data, or how long does it take?
So to build the setup, it's not like super quick. It took me like...
You were telling... So Elric was telling us before we started hitting record, you're working on a table right now that has like 200,000 data points.
This one is bigger. This one is bigger, the new one. But the one I was working with, this HR company, they had like 1,400 companies. So it was not... The data set was not big. But what's time consuming, it's building all those micro steps that you need. For example, finding, do they have an HR person? I forgot to mention, for example, we had the percentage of how many in-office jobs they are hiring for and versus operation on the field jobs, because they are really focused on companies with people in office. Not, for example, they don't want to after a factory. So we analyze all the job postings so they can focus on those companies. So it's a lot of Microsoft that took us maybe 5+ hours just to do that. But then, the enrichment to do those steps, it takes a few hours. So it takes obviously a few hours to set up. But if you have 10,000, 20,000 accounts, you can do that faster than having a person doing it manually, actually.
Oh God, and the cost of paying someone to do that, because most companies have a RevOps person, someone that's making above 6 figures, being paid to build lists, or worse, they have their SDRs doing it, which I think we share this very similar point of view of like SDRs and AEs should not be doing this type of work.
No, and I was actually for this use case and what we're talking about here, having a person doing it, that's a use case I was trying to solve in 2022. And at that time, I wasn't familiar with Clay, and I think ChatGPT, I don't think it was public yet, or I don't remember, but don't think so. But the only solution was how you have like a technical person, an engineer that can figure out all of the stuff and doing it for your team, or you need data entry specialist basically doing this for you. You couldn't do that like with a tool.
That's wild. So having AI do the account research, that's just kind of barely skimming the surface. The stuff that's really cool with this is using something like Clay to help you. Like I have another client that sells a video podcast solution. Like one of the things they have it do is like, it'll literally scour websites for like, do they have a YouTube channel or not? What's the name of the YouTube channel? Do they have a podcast or not? What's the name of the podcast? Like just that little stuff where as a rep, when the prospect says hello, everything I needed is a click away, or it's just
Yeah,
presented to me right there without me having to do it. How does the account scoring
yeah.
work? Is that something that's like fairly automated too, and you just give it parameters, or are you
No,
just given this data and then you create the
yeah.
scoring mechanism for it? How does all of that work?
Okay, so for scoring, obviously, if I use AI to accelerate this, so to find quicker what's more powerful in your scoring. But first, you need the data points, because if we go back to my example with the HR company, I can't score those accounts if I don't have this data. So the first step, I need this data. So also, I'm using AI for finding ways that I can use that Clay can find or other tools can find that I'm not thinking about. That's the first step. Once I get the data, then that's when I'm start using the scoring. So for scoring, for
Yep.
me, it's if I don't know where the ICP, most of the time I use AI. I say, okay, here are the main customers or the customer, a few examples of the customers, the pain points of the company, what people say on G2 and in case studies. And then I ask to get the scoring based on that. Because unfortunately, I don't know. When I work for the company, it's easier. I already know what's really like a big pain point. So it's for me, it's quicker to do that. But when I don't know the company, I use AI to build a scoring system for me. So, and then you have in Clay, because I use Clay right now for building this, but in Clay, you can score based on those data points. So if we go back to the example of the HR company, if I knew they hire all the employees or the job post for their job posting they're hiring for in-office roles, that's a high score. I know that's going to be a big weight on the score. So if it's they're hiring for plumbers, for example, I know that's the company they want to avoid. So minus 50, minus 100, for example.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the custom AI data scraping agents, is there anything else that's like, let's say I didn't have an account list.
Mm-hmm.
Is there are there stuff out there that will build the account list too? So let's say I sell to home
Yes.
improvement contractors in the United States and I say I want you to scour Yelp and Google Places and just get on Google and just build me a big list. Can it do stuff like that for you too?
So Claire, no, no, but on Friday, actually, that's 4 days ago, before the recording, someone shared with me a tool. I said, okay, interesting. I took a look at it, and right now I tested it for the customer I'm working with, and I said, give me the biggest accounts in this industry in these states, in the United States. Give me the size of the company, the criteria that I'm using for them in less than 1 minute. And he gave me a list of 50 companies. I said, wow, okay. I didn't need to scrap anything, needed to find, because Clay, the problem with Clay is, if I want to focus on my CP accounts for them, for example, if I'm going on LinkedIn, I can't go on LinkedIn. They're not like a traditional industry, so I can't go just on LinkedIn and say, oh, give me those companies in this industry. Unfortunately, that doesn't work this way for them. So I need to find like a public database of their
Yeah.
ICP, scrape it, clean it, merge it, use it, import it into Play. And this tool actually does everything for you. So I say, what the? It's really impressive. So yes, it's coming. It's this one is exa.ai. So it's still, I know they're not early, so they're like maybe they are 2 years old, but I'm already impressed by what they can do. So it's really impressive.
That's crazy. So pillar three, CRM automation and data management. What are some of the stuff that, and this is now starting to get kind of more into the back end type of things
Yes.
that companies are doing. But what are folks doing for their CRMs and how's it helping the reps?
Yeah. So one example that I'm doing with them right now with this customer, and I know other companies are doing that, is they use AI to, for example, classify the title of the people inside the CRM. What I mean by that is, if you check your CRM, and here it's more like, maybe it's more for the ops person or the leader here. It's maybe not for the rep, but you can classify or put like, okay, this title is part of the marketing team. So then you can create a new field for teams, for example. And then you can, if you create a report on Salesforce, you can see all the marketing members of a company versus manually researching those specific titles inside your CRM. So you can do a lot of manual stuff. Normally should take a lot of time to classify, okay, is this person into the marketing team or the sales team? If they have like a title that you didn't think about. AI, basically, if you can use Claire, I think, you have other tools to do that, but I use Claire on my side to do that you give them the 5 segments you want for those titles, and then you put them in those categories, and pretty effective.
So you basically, the use case for this would be classifying a job by like the persona maybe that it's in, so that you could segment the data. Because there's like all kinds of different variations of titles where it's like sales development director, business development director, account development director. It's like we want to put all of those into a sales development bucket, let's say, that we're going to reach out to. And then I imagine you could do seniority. Could you do something similar with if you wanted to take the accounts and group them by industry, let's say?
Yep. Yeah, you could do that. On my side, I've stopped using industries from LinkedIn for the example I gave earlier. Because, for example, if you sell to SaaS companies, you go on LinkedIn, you said you put software, I think it's computer software computer, something like that. Yeah. Sometimes there are consulting companies, sometimes you have a SaaS company under logistics, and so it's not messy. Accurate. So yes, you can have AI to classify the industry based on the website, based on the description of the company. So it depends on what you use or the parameters you use.
Are there any other stuff that like people are doing from a CRM standpoint that's like appending other types of data based on call outcomes or calls completed or stages or intent or like any other stuff that like is helpful for a rep at a glance when they're going through? And because most reps, I mean, you've seen it, right? Most reps do not take notes in CRM. Very few of them actually do. So there's like all of these deals with like no intel on what's going on.
So updating Salesforce or your CRM based on the transcript of your calls, call calls or discovery calls, are depending on the stage of your call. Now you have tools to help you fill out the fields you need. Actually, that's funny because yesterday I saw on LinkedIn someone complaining about that, say, oh yeah, how can you trust AI to do that for your team? Well, one is it your team already doing it? And two, you can still have a rule where the rep can overwrite what AI says, because obviously, like I said earlier, it's sometimes AI is, you can't trust 100% what AI is saying, because sometimes it doesn't understand the context. And
you know what's funny though is like, okay, let's say AI messes up 1 out of 100 times. Like people mess up way more than that.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. It's most of the time one, or they don't do it, or they mess up with what they're including the notes. So it's better to have AI pre-drafting what you should filling out in your fields, because it's not just it's one field. It can, if you use Bent, if you use Spiced, or if you use whatever methodology you are using, you can basically extract what you need from the core, implement that into your CRM. Also, what you can do, it's stuff that are small, but for example, if you are in a competitive space, you're on a call, they say, okay, we have a 3-year contract with our competitor, we just signed last month. Normally, in my previous companies, we were manually changing this in the CRM. Now you can use an AI tool for that. So you don't need just to use for your methodology or the pain points they are saying on the phone, but you can use what's the competitor and also when you should reach out to them.
Yeah. Even having like for enterprise accounts, hot links to in their investors page where you can find their 10K or 10K, just making stuff easier to find and providing a short summary of what's in there is super helpful. Let's go to pillar 4. So call prep and coaching, what are folks doing in those areas right now?
Well, if we talk about call prep, that's what I'm doing for every prospect that I'm talking with or customers internally. But I know some of my customers or companies I'm talking with, they have like for a discovery call, obviously if you have maybe more information. So the prompt is not super different than what you use in your outreach, but
Mhm.
it's you have some part of it. But I use the context about what I know about them. So if they send me a message, or same for my customer, if they send them like a context, I use that, and then I'm going to find online the what's relevant for them, so I can prepare the call and already have like a POV or things that I think I should focus on during the call. It's not like I'm not obviously using all of it, but it's great to prep for each call versus just asking, "Oh yeah, what's on your mind?" or why did you reach out? So yes, obviously they have something in mind, but I want to also understand what's happening in the business on why they reach out. Because, example, I was talking with a French company 3 weeks ago for helping their ZR team. They reached out to me, but when I prepped the call, I saw a press article with the CEO talking about they are going up market this year, they are going into the US this year. I said, okay, maybe that's the true reason for why they need help with their ZR team. So I don't want to just leave with that, but I know that's some. If
Yeah,
it's on the mind of the CEO, that's I imagine that's on the mind of the sales leader. So
absolutely. What are you seeing in the way of like real time coaching? I know there's some solutions like revenue
yes,
AI, I think it is. Like I've seen where it's providing like real time coaching like in the call. I don't know how much of that was actually AI, but it was kind of cool to where the transcription was happening live in the call and like
yeah.
certain prompts could come up based on what it was hearing. Again, I don't know if much of that was AI as much as it was just kind of automation based off of like a if I see this, then that kind of thing. But what are you seeing?
So I only know one company using that right now, and it's not. I recorded the episode on. It's for my podcast actually. That's Touch Bistro. I was talking with the ops leader Touch Bistro, and she was telling me. I will need to check what's the tool, but that's a dialer, but I don't remember which one of all of them. They use a dialer that can give real time coaching. So an example she was giving me was an SDR is on the phone, a prospect mentioned a pain, the SDR don't dig into this pain. The AI is going to suggest, hey, you should ask this question, or you should unpack this pain.
Yeah.
Because they're already trained, their model around what's the pain point that touch people are solving, so they know where to dig in. Okay, they mentioned this competitor. Here's a battle card, for example, of this competitor. And so that's
Yeah.
basically in real time,
Yeah, like
which
when you get
is,
objections and it shows like
yeah.
a prompt pops up with suggestions on how to handle it. What's your thought on that, by the way? I mean, like, do you feel like that's helpful or not? Do you feel like that's going to make a difference? Like real time, I personally find some of the real time stuff to be pretty distracting. So like the coaching would
Yeah.
have to be really, really good, you know, for it to be helpful for me. But what are your thoughts?
No, I think that's a good point what you mentioned about being distracted about that. For me right now, real time, because I did not use it yet, so I don't want to say it's not helpful for me, but I know for me it's on call calls, it's more about preparation,
Yeah.
repetitions more than what you say on the phone. So you're more prepared about how, when they say this objection, you know how to respond to this objection. So uh, I think it's a good thing, but like you said, for SDRs, maybe it can be distracting, but maybe for a rep with more experience, oh yeah, that's fine for them because they are not, how do you say, stressed by the goal, or
Yeah.
they can focus on the conversation, but also, oh yeah, that's a good point. Yep, focus on this on the pain point. So still too early because I know not a lot of tools are doing that yet. So uh,
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's going to be wild when a lot of this technology is built into more of these tools because it feels like so sporadic where half a dozen or a dozen different tools that someone has to know how to piece together right now in
Yeah.
order to get a lot of this to work.
But the good thing now also, it's yes, you have more tools, but the good thing it's in the backend most of the time for
Yeah.
apps, which is good because before Claire or the AI tool, it was a lot of okay, that's a new tool, a new tab, and that's distracting your team. So we were always thinking about if I'm implementing this new tool, how can we improve that? Can it be at the backend? And some tools, unfortunately, you couldn't. Now it's all the stuff we're talking about today. It's in the backend.
Yeah.
It's more about on the leadership side or the ops side
Yeah.
to implement that and use it.
Yeah. So pillar 5 is deal management and handoffs.
Yes.
What are you seeing in this area?
So this one pretty exciting because if we go back to the example of updating the CRM, when you book a call when you're on SDR, one step in the process is to send a message to AE and an intro email for the prospect and your AE. So you can automate that now, or you for the email you can pre-draft that, and then if it's fine, you can say it. If not, just fix what's missing or you should add. But internally, you can have like a Slack notification saying, okay, I booked a meeting with VP of marketing. Here are the 3 pain points I mentioned on the call. And it's done automatically versus you doing it manually.
Yeah.
I think it's another good use case, mainly for companies. But if you are more maybe inbound or like high volume, because if you book 30 meetings a month, that's 30 tasks.
That's a lot of messages.
Yeah. So that's another one. So it's, I think, for efficiency for reps, it's a really good one.
Yeah, this is pretty cool too. Like the overall theme here is AI. I like to describe it as an extra set of hands, not an extra brain. In some areas, it's kind of doing a little bit of thinking, but really everything you've described so far, it requires someone to give it direction, or it's summarizing something that would normally take someone, if it took someone 10 minutes, 15 minutes to write that message, it just happens automatically behind the scenes in a couple seconds. But it's not doing anything magic.
No.
It's just taking a transcription of that and then summarizing it. No different than a rep would.
Exactly. And if we think about they work 8 or 10 hours and they have, if we talk about SDRs, they spend 30%, 50% of the day on non-revenue generating activities.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So it's not one thing that you can remove, but all the examples we were talking about today, it's if you tackle all of them, that's reduced.
Yeah.
I think you can reduce to 10% of your day and just admin stuff.
Let me ask you this though. Do you actually think that the reps would replace that time with revenue generating activities? And the reason I ask that is because, like, let's say that someone didn't have to do anything besides pick up the phone and make the calls and everything else happened. Like, is a person capable of making 8 hours of cold calls in a day sustainably? Like, I don't think so. Like,
I think it's
like how much more can you squeeze out of a person, like from a just mental, like a cognitive load standpoint, you know?
Well, I think right now it's 8 hours a day in cover. I don't think that's possible because you still need time to rest. Because I know for 2 or 3 hours it's already really not tough, but it's raining. So I know not all of companies are just focusing on the phone. So some of them still using LinkedIn, still use calls and emails, even though AI is helping a lot. So they are still splitting their time into those activities. So they have more time for all of them. I think one way that can help, it's more time also for self-development, because yes, AI can automate a lot, but you still need to improve. We didn't talk about business acumen, but I think for Outbound specifically, business acumen is a big layer for high-performing reps. Because if you don't have business acumen, it's tough to have a conversation on the phone. Via email, I think it's a bit easier because you don't have like someone replying, but on the phone, they can feel really quickly that you understand what you're talking about. So for me, it's you have more time for doing more, but you can be more strategic on your outreach, and then it's having more time to enablement, self-development, but also role plays or repetitions.
So let's talk about last but not least, pillar 6, performance and intelligence. This is the one I'm probably most excited about because I just always thought this technology was a no-brainer for any company that's collecting conversational intelligence. They have recorded sales calls, they have the emails, they have all of the messaging that goes back and forth. You would think right inside of all of those transcripts is the customer's language and the pain points and everything that they use. Why is that not being served up to us to say, hey, we noticed that your reps don't mention these 2 challenges that 80 out of 100 of the last types of prospects like this have stated that they have in your demo calls. Like that to me just seems like the obvious thing to do, that you would then populate into emails and talk tracks and deliver coaching around and that sort of stuff. So what are you seeing in this area?
So I think you have a couple of things in what you mentioned. So you have scorecard, I think, based on what you mentioned. So do you have already a framework to know if your rep already said the right thing? So some companies are using it because most of them, they are using AI for coaching or for coaching role plays, most of them, but they don't use for scorecard. So it's still early, I would say, in this sense. The other thing you mentioned about the language, this one, not a lot of companies are using that, but personally, I use that for what I do in podcast recording with people on LinkedIn, via email, and I'm building it because it's not ready yet, but basically I'm tracking what you just mentioned. Why I'm doing that personally, I do that to know if I have 20 people saying they're struggling with cold calls, well, I should produce more content around cold calls, for example. So it's an AI that can help me get the transcript and analyze the trends around pains mentioned by people on LinkedIn that I'm talking with or on calls.
Yeah. And the workaround I've been doing for that is something very similar to you, it sounds like, where I just take the transcripts of 10 sales calls I've done with directors of sales or heads of sales development, and it just pulls out the trends and the language. It's literally the thing I then regurgitate when I make an outbound call or center the email around. The messaging on our website was built this way, so it's this again, it just seems like something so obvious that you would build into these platforms that would produce real results.
That's funny. I'm going to give a specific example for language. That's something I learned 3 years ago, actually, for language. Before, I was not like super focused about how they say it. I was using what everyone's saying internally. Actually, that was a cheaper. And then I started to read the case studies or listen to Gong's call. And sometimes also when someone was talking about us on LinkedIn, I was using their, how do you say it, copy paste of what they're saying, and obviously including that in my email versus using what we're saying internally. It was manual, but now you can do that with AI, basically.
Yeah, that's crazy. So just to kind of recap, so we have email and outreach optimization was pillar number 1. Pillar number 2, research and account scoring. I really love the back end. Let's use something like Clay to append all of these extra little data points that help us score accounts, help us personalize our outreach, etc. Pillar 3 was CRM automation and data management. I love the classifying roles by department and just kind of building personas in that way. Pillar 4 was call prep and coaching. Lots of interesting things there. Pillar 5, deal management and handoffs. I love the summarizing the notes for handoff. One thing we didn't talk about much was the AE to CSM handoff.
Yes, that's
love all that stuff. The risk alerts for managers. And then lastly was pillar 6, performance and intelligence. This is great, dude. There's so much here. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about, how can people learn more about you, what you do? You have a fantastic newsletter. Where can people go and check out more of your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and it's Elric Legloire, but I imagine you will add the link in the description so they
Yeah.
can find it. But yeah, I think the main thing I'm focusing on today is my newsletter, because everything that we just shared together, it's the same way, but more in depth. Or I'm trying to show how you can use that today. So,
And the name of the newsletter, you want to drop that so people can check it out?
I'm sorry, yeah, Outbound Kitchen.
Outbound
So it's
Kitchen,
on
they can
Substack.
find it
So
on
it's
Substack. Yep.
outbound.kitchen. So that's the new. Oh no, sorry, newsletter.outbound.kitchen.